Downtown Johannesburg is not in many tourist brochures. It has a reputation for drugs and gang violence. But Rael Lessus thinks that's exaggerated. He was happy to take an American television crew around neighborhoods like Hillbrow. Lessus says this area is inhabited not by gangsters but ordinary folks struggling to make ends meet. Many are immigrants from other African countries. Most live without one of the most basic tools of modern life.
A lot of these people have not had decent and cheap and affordable access to the internet or to telephony services.
He says fewer than 1% of households here or in South Africa's rural areas can afford landlines. People are forced to use prepaid cell phones at rates 3 times what Americans pay for similar service, even though people here earn much less. Lessus says the huge fees to connect or terminate calls to even local phone networks hurt South Africa's competitiveness against countries with much lower telecom rates like India and China.
For us to terminate a call onto a mobile network in China cost us a lot less than if someone phoned a landline in that shop down there. But a lot less. So it goes to show, look at these developing countries, India and China, their telecommunications costs are low, and look at their growth. Here, we are being exploited. You know, imagine someone, if they speak for 10 minutes, let's work it out even in dollar terms, like 20 minutes is 50 Rand, is almost $8.
For a 20-minute local call.
For a 20-minute cell-to-cell call.
The big telecommunications providers like Vodacom and MTN say the prices reflect the cost of building infrastructure across a vast country. Their critics say the companies are simply ignoring poorer neighborhoods they perceive as less lucrative, and they say the government hasn't helped. The government still owns a share of what used to be a public telecom monopoly, and it shares in the windfall of phone and broadband profits. Flying under the radar of these sky-high rates, Lessus saw an opportunity to start his own business called Dabba Telecom.
We can buy in bulk at like 1 Rand and sell it at 1.20 Rand. And actually people normally would be buying it at 3 Rand, so it's win-win. We got a margin, people are saving money. We're just opening this all up into a Wi-Fi cloud.
Across the downtown, Dabba has installed relay antennas that connect one building to the next. Routers connect the buildings to the internet and make internet-based phones possible.
We've got a pair of cable going into every single apartment.
Rael Lessus describes himself as a geek with Robin Hood urges. He made a fortune selling education software, mostly in Europe. He sold his company and with a few other investors began Dabba Telecom as a social business 2 years ago. He's an economist and teacher by training, and the new business has brought out his inner door-to-door salesman.
Do you want cheap telephones in your room?
He randomly knocks on strangers' doors.
Phones are free.
The phones are free and then you pay for the internet, but you got to buy prepaid airtime for the phones as well.
Dabba has placed phones free in about 9,000 apartments. To use them to call cell phones or landlines requires prepaid credit, which is sold at nearby convenience stores. It's how Dabba recovers its costs, though Lessus points out Dabba cards are far cheaper than the large company ones. For more and more people, phone and increasingly internet connections are making a huge difference.
So now we connect to the internet.
Lucas Ramagonda is a bus driver with a catering side business. Internet access is essential, he says, but until now, getting online via cell phone connection ate up most of his business profits.
And now your business is going to pick up also, your side business.
I really hope so. That's my wish.
Lucas and his wife, Queen Ramagonda, are most excited for what it means in the future for their son, Mutsidzi.
Like there's something that they need from school, we can get it from through the internet.
One connection at a time, Lessus says the neighborhood is being transformed.
In this street, there's probably about 1,500 internet terminals, which is amazing. We'll just go, so there's a huge demand for the internet. So we'll cross over, be careful there, let's have a look.
Collins Moyo owns 2 internet cafes. Without Dabba's lower connection rates, he says, he'd have no profit.
If, say, I can pay 10 Rand to Telkom, maybe Dabba I can pay 2 Rand, so you can say I'm saving 8 Rand.
The 80% savings is allowing him to expand to a 3rd store, he says, and Dabba is also growing.
Our revenue is now growing like quite a lot. It's like probably 30-40% a month now. and now the internet. So I reckon we'll probably break even in the next 4 or 5 months on our running costs, not on our investment, and then it'll probably take another year or so.
His immediate goal is to more than double the number of households with Dabba phones to 25,000 by the end of this year. If it proves sustainable, Lessus says this could be the model across the developing world.
You could bring in one bulk connection to the internet. You could distribute it prepaid to your neighborhood, and also you can create a telephone system, and then that person would have enough money to make a nice living and service their users.
If such enterprises prove profitable, he says, large companies may be attracted into underserved inner city and rural markets, not just here but in many other countries. That would bring competition and lower prices for all.